What information in the PDF looked like where you knew you needed to fill out the extra step? Um, I knew we needed to fill this out because they mentioned it here in the notes. And we had a situation where on they said they mentioned something about a joint survivor annuity. And then here on the actual 1099-R, we had a taxable amount that was not determined. And there was nothing filled in for box two. So that meant that we had to figure out a taxable portion. Again, you will never see this at a site. I wouldn't I wouldn't try to remember or retain how or when this may happen. So once we knew that there wasn't a taxable amount and it was not determined, and we filled out the rest of the form, we clicked on this click here for options button. When we clicked on the options button, it brought us to the simplified method worksheet, and then we hit begin. And when we hit begin, we input this information. Yep, of course. Hit no, and then so now we have our taxable portion for 21,519. And we're done with that form. We've done two now. You guys are tax professionals. All right. So now we have another form. It's a form SSA 1099. Ooh, let's go back. So when you left the retirement form, it has it right here in the retirement section because typically people who receive Social Security or who are receiving a retirement are also drawing their Social Security. So it just makes it simple for you. You can click on Social Security benefits here, or if you're lost, you can just hit SSA. And you don't want to hit this first one, but you want to hit the Social Security one. And this form is really simple. Um, they make this form really, really simple. And the reason being is sometimes it may not even affect a tax return, so they don't require as much information. And so when we're looking at this form, we got to first figure out who it's for, so we know it's for Yvette. So we don't need to fill out this first portion because it asks for the taxpayer's information. We want to fill out for the spouse's information down below. And so when we're looking at this form, there's only three boxes that really stand out or that we need to focus on, which is box 5 for the net benefits. We have box 3 for the Medicare Part B premiums. And then we have box 6 if there's any federal withholdings for the 2,450. So when we put these in, it's pretty simple. We just put in for the 24,496. We have federal withholdings for 2,450. And we did have some Medicare premiums, so we'll add some. Say Part B. And it's for 2,220. This form is fairly simple. You don't have to fill out any demographic information or pairs 10 or any of this stuff. We just say, who was it for? So we scroll down to the spouse and we input the net benefits, which we found here on box 5 for the 24,496 and the federal withholdings for 2,450. And we did have some Medicare premiums, Part B for 2,220. So we added that, said Part B, 2,220, and that's it. Pretty straightforward form. Everybody saw how I did that? Awesome. That one's pretty simple. I love when I see that one coming because I know it's going to be easy return. All right, so now we have our next form, the 1099-C. We don't see it here on the first page, but can anybody tell me how we can find this 1099-C in the software? You want to put it in the chat? That's correct. We just hit the form finder. It's 1099-C. Click on it. And if you thought the Social Security form was easy, this one is simple too. The first part of Social Security benefits that I missed. Oh, we found the Social Security benefits. When we're looking at this form, we're looking at the net benefits. The withholding is in box 6 and the premiums in box 3. So for everybody in the form here, we'll input the information. Who is this for? Martin, taxpayer, creditor's name, new bank, new bank. And I'll go back to that form right after this. And we'll put the creditor's 10, creditor's federal identification number, 31,700. And the amount was $850. And this form is very simple in the software as well. Not a lot to fill out. Pretty straightforward. And this was the Social Security again. We didn't fill out the first portion because it was only for his spouse. And we input box 5, box 6, and then we added our Medicare premiums in there. And once we got out of that form, we landed back here in the income section. We don't know where this form is because it's a other type of income. And you can find it here on the second page, or we can just type it in the form finder. And we can add one that way. So next we have our student form. So this one, oh wait, the quick thumbs up. Everybody got the cancellation debt in? Cool. All right, so the next form we have is our 1098-T form. And so this is not necessarily a tax document or rather a income. So we know we're done with incomes. Actually, wait. Sorry, let's not do that one. Let's go back to the interview notes because there was one thing we didn't do just yet. And it was mentioned here right here. Yvette won $500 from a prize drawing. And we haven't addressed that yet, but we know that was income. So let's go to it. We'll go to other income. And because she wasn't issued a tax document for this, we'll have to go here to other income, not reported elsewhere. Um, and this one, it encompasses different miscellaneous incomes that are considered prizes and awards, jury duty, Olympic medals, um, stock options, other income, taxable grants. For us, it's prizes and awards. We know that she made $500 from prizes, and it was for the wife for $500. And we can continue. Now that is all of the income that's going to be on this tax return. Um, it was better to do it then. But as you can see, they had a few of the other incomes. Typically, for prizes and awards over certain amounts, yes, I'll show it again. Um, they will submit a document and report it to taxes because sometimes organizations um, they they get these as benefits, and so they'll always make sure to get um, your tax information before you leave out the building. You'll see that at casinos, they'll bring a clipboard and be like, "What's your social?" When you win. But let me show that again. So we just got in out of the income section. We just finished the other forms. We know it's not going to be here on this first page because it's a kind that wasn't really too clear. So we'll go to the other income section. When we went to the other income section, we went to income not reported elsewhere, and we hit begin. And then it jumped us into this page here. When we're in this page here, we know that she said she got $500 in prize drawings, and it was for the spouse. So it's spouse. We click this drop down menu, and we clicked on prizes and awards, and we input for the $500 and continue. So we only got a few more things to do on this one, and we're pretty much almost done. We got to address this, and we have to address this. So let's do them as they come. Let's work on this one. So this is the 1098-T form here. This is the school form. Um, the child needs to give their parents this form if they're going to be claimed on the tax return. So there's two ways that we can find this form. Once we're done with the income section, we can hit continue. Continue again. Actually, it might be better. We'll do this one first. So we'll go to credits, and we'll go to education credit, and it'll ask us who is this form for. Or we can go to the form finder, 1098-T, boom. A lot faster, as you can see, to type in the form name and it'll jump you straight into the form than trying to navigate the system. But there's two ways to find it. So it asks, select the student. Which one is the student? We know it's Abby. And now it's going to ask a couple questions. Do you have a Form 1098-T? Yes. Did the students receive 1098-T from 2024 box 7 checked? How we know this answer is because it's actually in the review notes here at the top. It says the previous tax year box 7 was not checked. So we know this to be no. And it was right here in the interview notes. And we'll hit continue. Once we hit continue, it's going to ask all the same things that we know how to do. So we'll input those. So let's go back to the 1098C. Um, Most times you don't have to. Um, we'll check the current year and we'll see. But it's a good idea to see if they have it. If this is their first year, then they wouldn't. But it's a good idea to see. But most times you can just ask and they'll give it to you. You do current and prior year when they're looking it up, and it's a little button, and they just push it and it'll open it up the PDF. So let's go ahead and put in our employer identification number or their filer's employer identification number, which is 38,800. 38,800. Institution name, Clark Community College. Address, 10 College Ave. Zip code. And this is all things we know how to do, things we've done before. We're just inputting the information from the 1098C. And we'll hit continue. So now it's going to ask us a couple things. Yeah, that's fine. I think it's just good practice to fill the whole thing in, but um, for this one, it's totally fine to abbreviate some of the addresses and things. In real life, we need to fulfill the entire document. So now we're going to look at the form and fill in for these informations. So one thing to note is if the qualifying expenses in box 1 do not exceed the scholarships and grants, then we can't use the 1098C form. But if the tuition and qualifying expenses exceeds the scholarships and grants, then in this form we can use. And so in this instance, we have qualifying tuition and expenses for 5,722. And we have scholarships and grants of 3,202. And this is the time where we would ask the taxpayer to provide their books, expenses, and for technologies or access labs, and they need to show us the receipts or wherever they purchased them from. Most times, a lot of people buy them off of Amazon or from their school for their access labs and things, and so they'll have a good idea to track these. We try to inform our parents to make sure that they're keeping track of their supplies as well, because sometimes that way they go to the store and just buy it and forget. And so, like we spoke about earlier, when it comes to the expenses, do you guys think that parking passes qualify as a expense that you can report? Yes or no? Mm. Yeah, the answer is no, unfortunately. Parking passes, room and board, payment vouchers are not qualifying expenses for the credit that we're trying to apply. And so what we can use is the campus bookstore charges for the $1,500. So we'll add in our additional expenses here. Nope, sorry. And that's the one we'll ask the taxpayer for, and they'll have to come up with that number and or some kind of receipts. And we'll hit continue. So what the system does to find what actually is the qualified expenses, it takes in account the amount of tuition that was paid. It subtracts the grants and scholarships, and then it adds back in the other expenses to find the total amount of qualified expenses here for the 4,020. Once we found that, it brings us to this next page. And so with the American Opportunity Credit, you have to satisfy this checklist in order to for the system to apply this credit. So when we're going through this, I typically just ask the taxpayer, okay, here's a couple questions. Can you answer these for me? So the first one is, has the American Opportunity Credit been used, already claimed for 4 years? We know the answer to that is no, because when we go back to the questionnaire, it says that they only used it. This is her second year of college, and she's only used it the year before. So we know it's her second year. So no, she hasn't used it all 4 times yet. The second question asked, was the student enrolled at least half time for the last year, for the 2025 year? So how we find this, we can either ask them, oh, at least half time. You can ask them this question and or the 1098 here on box 8 will be checked for at least a halftime student. It'll be checked every time. And if the student is unsure if they've used their credit, but they're in the graduate program, then this will be checked as well. So you'll know off of this form how to answer that question here. So yes, she was at least a half-time student. Did she complete the first 4 years of her higher education? No. And did the student have a felony drug conviction? And the answer is no. And we found that out from the interview notes. They told us that she didn't have a drug conviction, and she's on her second year, so she hasn't completed school yet. When we answer those questions, it'll bring us to this page, and this page will adjust determining or depending on how we answer those questions. So the system won't allow for you to use the American Opportunity Credit if you answer, say she did finish uh, her undergraduate degree and or she is, if they have a felony drug conviction charge, they won't be able to use this credit. Most times, or all the time, most times they don't they don't have that. But if they do, then they can't use it. They can use the lifetime learning credit, but they cannot use the American Opportunity Credit because it's 40% of it is refundable. So you see this here, they're going to receive 2,500 as a credit for going to school. And then it'll tell you which credit got applied, the American Opportunity Credit. And we have finished the W-2 and the American Opportunity Credits. We added in the expenses and we are done with this tax return, guys. We finished our first return. Give a round of applause for yourselves. You've done it. We have finished the first return. This one is a little bit tricky, but it shows what all is possible. And so it can be a little bit harder to No, but this next one has a little bit more to it, but the last one is fairly simple. So the next one will take us about probably another 30 minutes or so, but it should be pretty easy. Oh, you're right. Good catch, Anna. We forgot something. Um, in the interview notes, let's go back. We forgot to satisfy one more thing, the unreimbursed classroom expenses. So my apologies. Let's do that. So there's two different ways that we can find this form. So once we finished the income section, it takes us to this deductions page. So this is how can we benefit the taxpayer? What additional forms can we add to the tax return to assist them? Here at the top is an adjustment. It's called this educator expense. We'll click on that. And it'll give us all of these different adjustments. We're really looking for this educator expense. And this one's super simple. So we have 200. Thank you for catching that for me. Um, $275 here and 275. And this is just a credit for our teachers. We know that they spend a lot for their children to teach them, to aid them in teaching. And sometimes, and most times, is often out of pocket. And so it's just a little cherry on top for those teachers to take a little bit of a credit to assist them. And it's not for much, it's only it has a max of $300, but in our case, they had $275, so we'll go ahead and use it. And that's it. And I'll show you how I got there again. So let's go to deductions. We know that it's an adjustment. The second one is educator expense. And we put the $275 here. All right. Now we're actually done. Let's just double check. We are actually done with the return. So let's jump into the questions. The first one asks, what is the taxable portion of Yvette's pension from Liberty Expertise using the simplified method? Let's go to the taxable amount. What is the answer? Someone put it in the chat, please. Nice. Taxable amount. The Willises are not eligible to claim the credit for other dependents on their tax return. True or false? Let's go take a look at their tax return. Hold on. No. The fastest way we can find the answer to that question is right here. They have credit for other dependents marked as being received. So what is the answer? Yes, because they can claim her. She's under the age of 24, a full-time student. They can use the credit for other dependents. What is the total amount of other income reported on the Willis's 1040 form, Schedule 1? So every time we see Schedule 1, that means we have to go to what does the supporting document say? So let's go take a look. 1040, Schedule 1. Let's go to 1040, Schedule 1, and it asks something about other income. So let's go see. Total, line 9, total other income. What is the answer? Oh, we're looking at the total. So we're going to be here at the bottom. Total other income. Nice. Oh, sorry, I scrolled up. Portable care question? Martin is eligible to deduct educator expense in the amount of, what did we do? Educator expense. Yep. Oh, how to access the return summary? Let me go back for you. So here on the left-hand side, once you're finished with the federal section, if you go down on the health insurance section, answer no and hit continue. And then you'll hit continue to summary. In real life, we'll always ask the taxpayer if they had marketplace insurance, but since we don't have that form, we'll assume no for this example. And this will take us to the summary page. What I'm doing now is we're looking at the page 1040. The first two here at the top are the first two pages, the front and the back. And then the following pages are the summary pages or the schedules, the schedules, which are the supporting documents. And so 3 through 9 are those additional schedules that we're looking at. So we had 275 for that one. And we have a good question here. A higher standard deduction is available when a taxpayer is, you guys remember that from earlier? That was the first half of the day. Nice, nice. I'm so proud of you guys. Which of the following expenses do not qualify for the American Opportunity Credit? Remember we spoke about that earlier? Which ones are they? Yeah, unfortunately, them parking passes. Well, unfortunately, it's parking passes. I don't know how much you guys was were, but when I was going to school, it was like 200 bucks, 250, 250 bucks, and it was like a mile away from the building. The taxable amount of Yvette's Social Security income on Form 1040. So let's go back. We're going to the Form 1040. And the way we see the taxable portion is that here on this column is the full amount, and the taxable amount for the Social Security benefits is here on 6B. And the answer is nice. Um, and lastly, it asks, what is the Willis's total federal income tax withholding? Let's go find that. It asks for federal income tax withholding. We can find that on page 2, and we'll scroll down. Federal income tax withheld. We have 2 lines, and this is for the total amount here. And the amount, and the answer is, yes, we have 8,160. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, so this next one is a little bit tricky. It has a few things to it, but nothing too crazy. So let's take a quick 5-minute break. We'll come back. We'll knock this one out. This one is a little bit more complicated. It's not as complicated as the one we just did, but it's different in a little bit in a different way. And then the last one is actually really, really simple. So that one will take us maybe 5 minutes or so. It's really simple, maybe 5, 10 minutes or so. This next one has a lot of different forms, and so let's just take a quick break, stretch our legs. We're gonna come back, we'll knock this one out, and then we're almost done for today. So let's take a quick break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Starting now. Oh, let's go over them again, Michaela, then. Let's take a look. For the taxable amount of Yvette's Social Security, we found that here on page 1. And the reason it asks about the taxable portion is because with Social Security, um, Social Security in itself is untaxable income unless there's outside incomes, which makes it more and more taxable. So the system will automatically calculate the portions of which are taxable. In our case, we found the taxable portion because here on line 6, it has Social Security benefits and it has the total amount of her Social Security benefits, but it says the taxable amount of her Social Security benefits on line 6B is for that 20,822. And we can pull up, additionally, we can pull up there's a schedule. Let me find it for you. Oh, you might be, you're on this page. Go back to the summary page. If you go on the left-hand side, click on the summary page, and it'll bring you back to that one. Um, as for this one, we'll actually have to print this return. Let me pull it up for you. There's also a worksheet for the Social Security benefits being taxable, um, but that's the quick and easiest way to see the taxable portion for that. As for, did that make sense for number 21, Michaela? And then for 26, it asks about what is the total federal income tax withheld. So here on page 2, we found that because down below is the federal income tax withheld section, this line 25s. And we had federal withholdings from our W-2 as well as from our 1099 or our Social Security. And it amounted to this amount here. And this line doesn't say total federal income tax withheld, but it really means this is the total amount here on line 25D. and I'll be right back. Does that make sense, Michaela? All right. So let's get to work on the next one. So we got to first close out of the old one first. So if you go to the top right-hand corner, you can hit save and exit. And we'll hit save and exit. And now we're back at the main page. We'll hit Train Pro Web. Mine, oh, it does not have caps. All right, let me get logged back in. So isn't working. I clicked on the summary page. When I click, continues to send. Oh, okay. So you might be further back. Um, if you're in the e-file section, continue. If you're in this section, I don't believe it'll. It should allow you to go back. I don't know why it's not allowing you to navigate the return. Click summary when I clicked. It sends me to return details. Hmm. Do you see it like this? If you see it in summary view, you just click 1040 view. But we'll save and exit that one. Alrighty, guys. So let's go ahead and get started on the next return. So I'm gonna read the interview notes and we'll get going on it. Yeah, I can call you after this, Christopher. We can figure it out. Um, Jocelyn is a paralegal, age 26 and single. Jocelyn has investment income and a consolidated brokerage statement. Jocelyn is self-employed delivering meals for Fast Eats on weekends. She received a Form 1099 NEC and a Form 1099K. She received additional cash tips of 750, none of which were tips. Jocelyn uses the cash method of accounting. She uses business code 492000. Jocelyn provided a statement from Fast East indicating the fees paid for the year. These fees are considered ordinary, necessary for the food delivery business. 180 for insulated box rentals, $50 for vehicle safety inspection, $700 for Fast Eats fees. Jocelyn also kept receipts for the following out-of-pocket expenses: $120 for tolls while making deliveries, $500 for traffic tickets, $320 for Jocelyn's lunches. Jocelyn's record keeping application shows that she had driven a total of 2,500 miles during and between deliveries. She placed her own vehicle, an SUV, in service on 3/15/2020. The total mileage of her SUV for tax year 2025 was 12,500 miles. Of that, 10,000 were personal and commuting miles. Jocelyn will take the standard business mileage rate. Jocelyn is paying her own student loan from 2019 and when she completed her undergraduate degree. Jocelyn is working towards her Juris Doctorate degree to start a new career as a lawyer. She took a few college courses this year at an accredited college. Jocelyn took an early distribution of $5,000 from her IRA in April. She used $2,600 in IRA distributions to pay her educational expenses for the current year. She has never made any non-deductible contributions to her IRA. If Jocelyn has a refund, she would like to have it deposited into her checking account. So that's the interview notes, and let's get started on the return. So we'll start a new return, and we'll put in her social, 605. And we'll hit start return. Based on our interview notes, what do you guys think her filing status is? Yep, it's definitely going to be single. And I have this one done, so I'll go ahead and pull it up. But we'll only look at the basic information for now. So we got our filing status as single. And let's put in for her information. So we find that down here in the intake sheet. Let's input all her basic information. You guys know how to do this. And she did mark that she wanted the presidential fund. So we check that box. And we'll put in for her address. I'll give you guys another minute to do that. Thumbs up when you guys got in the Basic information. We found that information here. Her job is a paralegal. Date of birth. It's right here. Typically, we can use the ID as well for the date of birth. Make sure that it matches up. 03/08, 1999. And we have our address. And we put in a random number. So once we put that in, she doesn't have any dependents, so we can continue through. Let's scroll down and see what other documents we have for her. So we're first greeted with our first form, the 1099-R. We know how to do this one. We have boxes filled in, so it doesn't look like we have to do anything crazy. So let's go ahead and go to 1099-R. We can either find it here, or we can go to our form finder. Click here, add a new form, and let's input for the information. So we're going to start with the payers 10, 48,200, 48,200, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this should have populated for you. If it doesn't, you'll have to input it. New bank. And we'll just input the form as we see it. This time we do have a not determined, but they did put the taxable portion. So we have our gross distribution is our taxable portion for 5,000. Gross distribution, taxable portion 5,000. It does check box not determined, but we do know that it has a term determined amount. And we have federal income tax withheld for the $500. So we input for the $500. And we have a distribution code 1. And we do have IRA simple checkbox as well. So we'll checkbox IRA simple. Distribution code is 1, which means normal. Pay RD, fill that in. Then we went to the right side and put that in. There's a bunch of different reasons why the taxable portion wouldn't be determined. The most, the for an IRA simple, it shouldn't be determined because it's supposed to be untaxed because it's an IRA, because an IRA uses taxed funds to fund the account. For a 401k, it will have taxed amounts, but uh, it there's certain account types that would make it undetermined, but in this case, we do have a taxable amount. Oh, Michaela's going fast. Okay, so once we filled out the 1099-R, let's you're going to get this page here. So the system will say, hey, you're under the age of 59 and a half, and you're taking out your retirement. Can you tell us what type of plan this was? So we know it to be a retirement plan. So we'll click on the retirement plan. But when we went back to the interview notes, let's go back to the interview notes just right quickly. She mentioned here at the bottom, she took out 5,000, but she used 2,600 of it to pay for educational expenses. Oh, so now that we know that she's used some of it for a qualified expense, we know that we can help her out a little bit so that she's not paying that 25% or 10% withdrawal fee. So how we do that is, okay, it says there are circumstances in which the IRS will allow you to make early withdrawals which are exempt from required penalties. Go to the form. So we hit go to the form and it'll take you straight to this page. So it'll ask us, okay, from the taxpayer, what amount is she allowed to not be taxed on? Which portion is exempt from the 10% tax? And we found that to be the 2,600. So in the 5329 form, we said she used 2,600. And when you hit this drop down menu, you'll see all of these lovely exemptions that we spoke about earlier today. We click on the hierarchy education. And I'll do that one more time. And we can skip all of this. But there's different things like if you take out your plan and you're on a repayment plan and different things, there's different ways that you would input that or change it up. But let's go back. We went to we're here on the retirement page. It's a retirement plan. She did mention something about circumstances that would allow her to be exempt when we heard her say it. So we go to the form and under the 10% that's not subject to the 10% tax, we did the 2,600 and we included the reasonings for the exemption, which is the higher education. Quick thumbs up. Everybody saw how I did that? If you're confused, I'll do it again. Or lost, rather. Yes, I'll do it one more time. So we were in the retirement form. We filled it out as normal. And as soon as we go out of this form, it'll take us to this page. It'll say, hey, by the way, there's going to be a distribution penalty. The system will alert you that there's going to be a distribution penalty. So what we have to do is we have to say, okay, what type of distribution or what type of plan did you receive this distribution from? We know it to be a retirement plan. And then the system says, well, there's circumstances that would make an early withdrawal exempt from the penalty. And so it says, if that's the case, go to this form. So we said, okay, let's do it. Let's go to the form. When we went to the form, the early distributions that aren't subject to the 10%, based on what we found, was that when she went to school was the 2,600 for the IRA distribution, or for her educational purposes, rather. So we put the 2,600 here. And when we hit the drop down menu, we clicked on higher education purposes. And we skipped all of this stuff. And we hit continue. And so they've made it really intuitive now in the system. In the past, you had to just be able to locate this form and then apply it to the tax return. Now they just get you a quick button to hit the button to take you directly to the form, to apply it if needed. Oh, and then it asks a question about qualified disaster zone. You'll mark no. In the past, there was instances where taxpayers during, especially during the early days of the pandemic, that were being let go, and they had to take out their retirement without as soon as they were let go. And so they were, instead of having to pay the tax in 1 year, they allowed for taxpayers to do it in a 3-year spread, but that has already ended. And now we're done with the retirement form. Let's go to our next form. Now let's do the W-2. So we got We Win Associates, W-2. W-2 here at the top in the income section, or we can use our form finder. And you guys can see now that there's not two primaries on the return. There's only one person, that it automatically will fill in this section for you for Jocelyn. We will have to do the employer section, so let's go ahead and do so. So employer EIN, identification number, 35800 here at the top. 1234. And this section will fill in. Nothing to write home about on the W-2, but you can see box 1 and box 3. Box 1 differs from box 3 and 5, so make sure to change these boxes 3 and 5. But let's add in the 42,700. Then we'll add in our federal withholdings for the 3,300. And we'll change boxes 3 and boxes 5. For the 43,700. And we do have a code on line 12A for D. So we'll hit the drop down menu. Code D, $1,000. And we'll click the retirement plan. All things we've done before. I'll give you another minute or so to fill this out. And you don't have to fill in for the state information. Leave it blank. Right. So in real life, we will fill out this information if it's any state outside of the state of Texas. So if there are instances where people who work remote, the head company is based in a different state, they may be paying a state out of state tax unbeknownst to them. And so if that is the case, then we will have to produce a state return. So if you see down here below, they have like a state or multiple states down here below, we will add it. But if it's a state of Texas return, you don't have to include it because we don't pay state tax in the state of Texas. Oh, the 5329 again? Okay, so once we finish the retirement form, we've input everything. We hit continue. We hit retirement plan. And we hit go to the form. When we go to the form, it says early distributions that aren't subject to the 10%. In her interview notes, it said that 2,600 of it was used for educational purposes. So we put the 2,600 here. And when we hit this drop-down menu, it had higher educational purposes. And that's the 5329. The 5329 is just an exemption form to help take away the tax that they may have to pay. Cool. All right, let's jump into the next one. Now this is going to be the fun one. So this form is the 1099 NEC form. We're going to be working on a few things from it. And these two will be, this one will be included in this one, and then we'll have to add additional stuff to it. So this one's going to be a little bit action-packed. So let's, if you have any questions or need me to redo anything, let me know, but we'll go ahead and get started. So for the 1099 NEC, let's get out of here. We can go here, 1099 NEC. Let's add one. We're going to just fill in the payers 10, which is here, payers 10. We'll fill that in, and we'll fill in the payer's name, address, and zip code. And I'll do that with you guys. 63,400. That was Fast Eats. At address of 123 Lilac. Now this, once we have that in, we'll put in our non-employee compensation, which is in box 1 here for the $1,000. Put $1,000 here. Pretty simple so far. We're just putting in the demographic information and then the amount on the form. Once we've completed all of that, you'll hit continue, and it'll take you to this page here. We can leave these blank. You don't have to put anything here, but it asks for a business code. The business code we found from the interview notes. She used business code 49-2000. In real life, we'll see this. We'll kind of figure out what they do for work. Earlier when I showed you the expense sheet form, it'll say landscaping or door dashing or something like that. Okay, I got you. I'll go back. Um, so after we finish the NEC form, when we put in the NEC doc information, the 10, we just scroll down and we put in the non-employee compensation. We hit continue, and it'll bring us here to the Schedule C. It'll start the Schedule C section. Once we're in the Schedule C section, we'll just scroll all the way down and it'll ask us about business code. When we're here, we she gave us the business code. Most times the taxpayer won't know it. And we can go into here and it'll have hundreds of different codes, and so we'll do our best in real life to figure out which code properly is assigned to whatever it is that they do professionally. You can scroll down and look through them later on if you'd like to see them. Usually we kind of ask them what they do or and try to figure out which one closely aligns to their profession. You can also always type here too. So let's say food, or sorry, or manufacturing. You can type in at the top and it can also bring up kind of closely around what the business code is associated to their job. Then you hit continue, and then it's going to bring us to this right here. So we have to do something first before we start worrying about any of the rest of these. And the first thing we have to do is we have a few things to address. So one, we have some cash payments of $750. And then we also have a Schedule K form. We have a 1099K form that we need to put in. So where we do that is in the income section. Right here on this line, the first line it says include reported income reported on the 1099K. So we'll go back to the 1099K form. Here at the top says gross amount of payment for $8,225. So here she received a 1099K. We found it to be $8,225. We put it on the first line here. They made it really simple. In the past, you had to like do the 1099K and add it to the Schedule C, but no longer. You also, for the NEC, you had to make a Schedule C and then add it, but the system allows for you to make an NEC and then take you straight to the Schedule C. And then after we input for the 1099K, she did mention that she made another $750 that weren't tips um, while she was working. So once we have those in, and I'll do it one more time. Once we're on the Schedule C page, we went to income. We added in the 1099K for the gross amount for the 8,225 at the top, 8,225. And she had mentioned that she made another 750, so we added it to the return. So now that we've added in all of her incomes from her fast eats, we have to figure out and we have to address all of this stuff here. So when we're doing the NEC, the NEC says that they made income being self-employed or as a contractor. And the Schedule C says because I've made this income being a self-employed individual or contractor, I'm entitled to reduce my amount of tax based on the expenses that I have incurred during my work. So earlier today, we spoke about um, well, we see here that she has a business code, and then before earlier today, we talked about how certain codes, like the tax on tips, are allowed to take additional types of credits. So when we're looking at all of these expenses, let's just think like a plumber for a second. Can you guys tell me in the chat what type of expenses would you think would be regulatory to a plumber on a day-to-day? Anyone? Materials, tools, travel expense. We'll talk about gas, but that's pretty good. Tools, belts, supplies. If they're trying to get their name out there, maybe some marketing. And we'll talk about gas. Um, when we're talking about gas, it's an either or situation. You either do gas or you take the mileage because the mileage encompasses the gas, and I believe it's like 75 cents or something per mile or something like that. And so it's better to have, oh, insurances. You definitely need insurances. Um, you want to take the mileage instead of the gas. It's easier to factor the mileage versus the gas. Um, so when we're looking at Miss Jocelyn's expenses, which ones do you think she would not qualify for based on her Uber Eats or Fast Eats job? Definitely that traffic ticket. Anything else? Lunches. Yep. Yep. Because the lunches wouldn't qualify because the traffic tickets and the lunches wouldn't qualify because those are not regulatory to completing the job. Everyone has to eat to survive, but if you think like a marketing or some kind of outreach person who takes their customers out for lunch, those would be the type of individuals that would utilize lunches or meals. But in her case, it's not, she doesn't meet with customers to have lunch. She's delivering their food to them. And those are for her own personal self and not business related. Same thing with the ticket. Your job doesn't require you drive fast to get to those. Um, and that's why you can see tolls do count, but tickets do not because, um, yeah, you shouldn't be speeding or breaking any laws. You should be taking care of everything. So we did knock down the ones that we believe do not qualify. So let's talk about the ones that do. So now that we've found the business code and we have the expenses that are related to the job, let's figure out how to actually input them in the system. So now that we're here in the Schedule C, this is the part where we try to help reduce the amount of tax that they may owe because they're self-employed. And there's two different ways that we can do it. The first way that's most common that we see at the sides is we may put them here. There's the different types that they may receive during the year. We can put them here, but it's better for us to be more specific, especially when it comes to these different line items. And how we do so is we go to other expenses and we add an expense and we'll add for each individual one. So we'll say 180 for insulated box rental. So we'll do box rental, 180. And we will do that for all of these. I'll give you guys a few minutes to input these specifically, and I'll give you maybe 2 or 3 minutes to input all of these. And then when you're ready, hit a thumbs up in the chat. Oh, we got some fast ones in here today. Wow. Professionals. You guys are tax professionals already. Um, in most cases, it's better to be specific, especially for the IRS, because if it's regulatory to the job itself, won't cause a return to go into an audit. Let's say if we're in the general section and we are inputting and we accidentally put it in the meals line and we know that the meals aren't associated to that job code, it may cause the return to get sidelined or put into an audit to verify. And so sometimes it's better to be specific in this way, especially when it comes to the expenses, so that the IRS can see, okay, well, they had box renewals, inspection fees, FASTs fees, and tools. They won't question it as much if it makes sense. Writing in all caps is easier to see, especially when you do a couple of these in a day. Caps is easier to recognize the characters and to see. Um, and so when you're working on these, a lot of the site managers prefer that you write in all caps because it's easier to see and it's easier to read and to review. When you write in lowercase, sometimes it's kind of gets jumbled depending on the computer or the thing. It's just easier to see caps than lowercase. Good question. Especially at the sites, just turn caps on, everything in caps. All right. So now that we've addressed all of the fees, we still need to address one more thing. And it is this one here. We have something, she mentioned something about 2,500 a miles. So where do we put that in? We go to car and truck expense and we'll hit begin. And it'll take us to a page like this. So it asks for the description of the vehicle. We found that she was driving an SUV. So we just put SUV. The federal return is what we're doing. This is what we're working on. When we're working on a return, it's all federal. We don't have a state return, so it's all federal returns. And that's that 1040 with the schedules and the supporting documents. Federal return, tax return, same thing. So we put in the description for the vehicle, SUV, the date it was placed into service for business purposes. She told us in service 3/15/2020. So we'll put 3/15/2020. We had business miles, she told us, was 2,500. And she used 10,000 for commuting. So once we put this in, the system will automatically calculate the amount of the um, car and truck expense to reduce her tax liability for us. But we need this figure. What's really good about Uber and DoorDash is they keep track of all of the, not only all of their expenses, but also the total amount of miles driven while they're in service and working, which is really awesome. So, with especially for Uber, uh, if they bring you only one page, you're really looking for a 2 or 3 pager, and it'll have the total amount of miles, all of their different types of expenses. They'll even list the amount of the expenses out for you, and we just type them in as we see them. And they do a really, really excellent job of telling us what we need and having those business miles ready for us. So 2,500 for the business miles. And we're going to check box some of these. So she did use it as her personal vehicle during off hours. She did give us written evidence, and so we'll check those boxes. And this is just the IRS asking us to did we verify the information that we found and that we input. Everybody see the car and truck expense? Do y'all want me to do it one more time? Are we feeling thumbs up? Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we finished the NEC 1099K and the Schedule C. That's probably one of the harder things to do. When we get these types of returns, typically we're trying to get them to fill out all the information and make sure that everything is ready before we start this process. But when you see this form coming, you know that there's a little bit more work that's going to have to be done. But that is the forms in their entirety, and they're pretty simple when we work them through. So let's continue onward, and let me explain this form before we start working on it. So this is a consolidated form, and most investment companies, they'll have these consolidated documents on top, and then they'll have their supporting documents underneath. And so this document is maybe 4 or 5 forms in one. It's a 1099 DIV, a 1099 MISC, and a 1099 INT, all in the same form. The reason being is they just make it simpler for tax preparers to prepare by just having everything on one page. It makes it easier um, to print out because sometimes, especially when we get into this form, the supporting pages themselves are already can be anywhere between 50 and 100 pages. Really, we'll say taxpayer, thank you, but we'll just take the consolidated form and we can work from there. So we're going to start first with this form 1099 DIV. So we'll go to the form finder, DIV, dividend, and it'll ask us, is this interest? Is it 1099 INT or is this 1099 DIV? We'll click 1099 DIV and hit continue. And we'll fill it in. And I'll go back to mine. I'll show that again. When we went to this interest section, it asked us 1099 DIV or 1099 INT. We said DIV. And we hit continue. And we'll fill it in. So XYZ investments. XYZ investments. And we have our federal payers Fed ID number right here. 4200. And it's at 456 Pima Plaza. Dallas zip code 75235. And when we're at the sites, you'll have highlighters at your desk. And so I like to just take my highlighter and highlight across just to see what lines, because sometimes the lines can get confusing. And just make sure that we have everything on each line. So we have total ordinary dividends for 300. Ordinary dividends 300. We have qualified dividends for 225. Qualified dividends 225. We have total capital gains of 350. 350. And then we skip a bunch of lines and then we get to a section 199A dividend for $32. So we skip down. Section 199A dividend for $32. And typically you'll have more of these filled in real life. Like we spoke about earlier today, sometimes they'll pay for those foreign taxes here as well. If it's a company that's out of state or out of the country, rather. And then once we finish this 1099 DIV, we're going to scroll down. We don't need to do this one. We can do the form 1099 INT, and then we'll input the interest income as well. So then we'll add a new one, and then we'll do interest income. And then it'll take us to this page and we'll refill out input for the interest income as well. And it's just the top box for the $50. So I'll let you guys do that. Um, and let me know when you're done. Sheesh, Sam is a monster. Okay. Right, Matthew? Darwin? Okay, Matthew. I'll allow another minute or so for everybody else. All right. So now that we've input our consolidated form, this is the first half. There's also a consolidated form for investments for stock trading. Um, and how they break down the consolidated form for investments or trading is based on a short term transaction or a long term transaction. And the difference in between this is the tax table for each. A short is taxed higher than a long is. And so with the brokerage account, they will differentiate the difference for us and they will separate them outward. But this is the consolidated form for such. Um, on the consolidated form, it will have the total amounts and the trades, and the just a quick overview. And it's then followed up by, again, when we have stock traders who are big into stock trading and they come in, they'll have anywhere between 30 to 200 pages. Again, we just want to stick with the consolidated form and we can work our magic from there. But for us today, we actually have to input some stock trades, and so we shall do such. The first one we're going to work on is the short. We see the short term, which basis is reported to the IRS. We have what we're working with. We know that it to be a stock, and we have a date acquired. So how you view this form is it kind of like goes downward like this. It goes downward. So we have date acquired here. We have date sold 02/27/25. We have quantity sold, and then we have the proceeds 2000, and we have the cost, which is 1800. We don't have to worry about the gains. The system will automatically calculate the gain or the loss for us. So let's go ahead and put it in the system. Firstly, what form is this? This is a Form 1099-B. So we have it here on the form. So where do we find that? We hit continue. We're still here in the income section. We hit Schedule B. Actually, I'm sorry, back. It's Schedule D. We get Schedule D, or we can type in 1099-B. Oh, there we go. And we'll go 1099-B. And we know this to be a stock. And let's go ahead and add a new capital gains. So it says capital gains transaction. What is the description of the property? So if it's a cryptocurrency, a virtual coin, or if it's a stock or a bond, we'll be able to say what it is. So for here, we'll just say stock, all caps, I'm sorry. And it asks us about date acquired. Date acquired is 01/20/2025. So January 20th, 2025. And it asks us about the date sold, which is February 27th, 2025. Okay, I got you. I'll go back, Michaela. We, in the form finder, we just typed in 1099-B as in boy, and it popped up for us under capital gains, and then it pulled us into this form. So once we put in the date acquired and the date sold, it asks us what's the sale price. The sale price is the proceeds from the sale. So it's the $2,000. And it asks something about a cost basis. So the cost basis, it says this is a short-term transaction where the basis is reported. So let's find that. Cost basis is reported to the IRS. And we have our cost, and our cost was 1,800. So put our cost, and that is our short-term transaction. We don't need to put the gain or the loss. The system will calculate this for us. And there's certain things that may happen on a return, but for the purposes of this exercise, we don't need to check any of these boxes. And I'll delete that again. And Michaela, we found it here, 1099-B. I'll do it for me. Stay here. Yeah, I think I got to relog. Um, we'll just hit Schedule D, stocks, mutual funds, cryptocurrencies, and it'll jump us into this common stock, date acquired, date sold, sale price, and adjustments. So we'll do the same thing now. So we'll add a new one, and we're going to do the same thing for the long term. Notice on this one, it says the cost basis is not reported. So let's go ahead and start it. It's a description, it's a common stock. Date acquired, let's flow down, is 10/12/2008. 10/12/2008. Date sold, 10/31/2025. 10/31/2025. What was the sale price? Proceeds, 3,100. 3,100. And our cost was 4,000. As you can see, we have a loss of about $900. And the loss is shown by the parentheses, the brackets around it. Thumbs up when you got it in. And you guys are super professionals now. Wow. You've done a 1099B, 1099INT, 1099DIV, 1099K, 1099NEC, a W-2, and a 1099R twice today, and a 1099S SSA today. So we only got a few more things to do, and we're done with this return. So those were the harder subject matters that we were working on. So let's go to the next form. We got our 1098E. So let's go to the form finder. 1098E, student loan interest. Click on it. And this one is the most simple form you'll see ever. You don't have to put anything. You only put one line of anything in there. 1098E for the student loan interest. And the amounts was 3,750. So we put the 3,750 in and continue. We'll skip this next page and we're done with that one. Pretty simple, very fast. They made this form super simple, very easy to input. So let's do her 1098T. You guys know how to do this one. But firstly, can somebody put in the chat what credit is she going to receive before we do it? Can somebody tell me which credit that she will receive? She's finished her first 4 years of school. She's going for her graduate. Okay, you almost made me have to pull the book out. I got nervous for a second. It's the lifetime learning credit because she's finished her undergraduate degree. So let's get started. Let's go to the form finder. It's a 98T. And we know how to fill this in. So go ahead and do so. And for this example, we'll assume that she's used all of her American Opportunity credit. So we'll say yes, that she's received it. Of the 1098T, Michaela? Okay, I got you. Let's go back. So you can find it here in the education credit section. Let's It asks 1098T, did you have a 1098T form? Yes, we do. Was box 2 and 7, was 7 filled in? We're going to assume no. And then we'll add in the employer identification number. Employer identification number, 37700. 37700, and I just added a bunch of zeros after. And we have Mercury College. And we put it, the address and information. Once we input that, we continue. We only have qualified expenses for the 2600. And during the interview notes, don't believe she mentioned anything about books, expenses, and fees. So we have no expenses to add, but in real life, we would make them go get their expenses and fees and come back. We would pause the return for them to go and get their expenses and fees if they have them, if they can't locate them at the time. No scholarships and grants, no qualified expenses. We continue. And it'll make us do the questionnaire for the American Opportunity Credit, even though we know she won't qualify for it. We're going to assume that she has received the American Opportunity Credit since she's in her graduate program. She wasn't a full-time student or a half-time student, and we found that to be true because here on the 1098T, this box 8 is not checked for half-time. And it asks, did she complete her first 4 year of higher education? It's marked yes. She's going for her graduate degree. And did she have a felony? No. And as you can see, when we finish up the return, it doesn't even offer American Opportunity as a credit. It'll only allow for you to select the lifetime learning credit. And the system will say we recommend the lifetime learning credit based on the information that we found, even though we've made the determination ourselves. And let's go back up and make sure that we got everything right quick before we close this one out. 26, NEC, Schedule K, 750, business code, expenses, mileage, her degree, student loans. We are done. We have finished our second return. Oh, the 750 cash payments and the Schedule C, when we were in the Schedule C in the income section, when we added that Schedule K in there for the 8,225 and the other income section, we added that 750. Cool. So let's go over the questions right quick. The first one asks the net short-term capital gain reported on Jocelyn's Schedule D is. So let's go to the summary. And it said schedule, so that means supporting documents. I'll have to print this one. Sorry, I gotta scroll down. And as you can see, the supporting documents is way longer than the actual 1040. So it asks the total net gain on the short term is net gain on short term. Somebody wants to write it in the chat what the answer may be. Thank you. Which of the following can be claimed as a business expense on Jocelyn's Schedule C? What's the answer, class? Nice. Nice. Jocelyn can take a student loan interest deduction of 2,500. Let's take a look. Okay. So the Pub 4012 tells us that it's a max of 2,500, but let's see what she did. Let's go to scroll up. Look in the deductions. Student loan deduction, 2,500. So the answer is nice. What is the total standard mileage deduction for Jocelyn's business on Schedule C? So let's go take a look. We got our Schedule C here, mileage deduction. Let's go look. Let's go up to our supporting documents for schedules. Well, let's scroll down to the Schedule C. Remember that was in the car and truck expense section. We have a number here, 1750. 1750. So what is the answer? Nice. The amount of Jocelyn's lifetime learning credit is 480. Let's go take a look. Lifetime learning credit. Let's look at the actual return again. Let's scroll up. Education credit here. I can just make it bigger, a little bit bigger. We got an education credit here. And for this amount. So true or false? Nice. Because she received a credit for 520. What is Jocelyn's additional 10% tax on early withdrawal from IRA? Form 1040 Schedule 2. So we see Schedule 2 Part 2. So let's go take a look. When we hear or see schedule, we know that we got to go to these parts. Part 2, Schedule 2 Part 2. Let's scroll down. Or actually right here. Wait. And we have our number. We can also find it in the summary view. If we go to Schedule 2, Part 2, additional tax on IRA. So what is the answer, please? Based on our findings. Nice. Good job. And lastly, to avoid having a balance due next year, Jocelyn can use IRS withholding estimator to calculate her tax liability and submit a new Form W-4 to increase her tax withholding. What do you guys think, true or false? Yeah, the answer is going to be true there. And really, when we have a taxpayer who owes That's one of the things that we can do is correct it for the future. Honestly, in her position, the best thing for her to do is to make estimated tax payments throughout the year, honestly, especially and have the W-4 form corrected through her job to pay more taxes so that she doesn't owe, because the system is a pay to as you go system. She should be making sure that she's paying um, so that she doesn't owe at the end of each year. So we're done with that one. A lot to it. You guys have done a lot of good work today. It can be very confusing, but that one was the maybe the hardest one to do. This next one is very, very simple. We've only got four things in the interview notes. Could you please quickly go back to 23? Didn't see 23. Let's go look. For the net short-term gain reported on her Schedule D, what we did is we went to the form because it said something about a schedule. Every time we see schedule, that means supporting documents. And so we went to the schedule. I printed out this return because it'll have the schedules in it. It's easier to see. So it goes schedule 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes schedule A, B, C, and then D. And here on schedule D, it breaks it down like how we did it with the short and the long. And here on the top half where it says the short-term capital gain tax, we saw the net short-term capital gain was for the $200. Awesome. So we only got one more to work. In the chat, do you guys want to take a quick 5 minute break and work it? It's going to take maybe 15 minutes to finish, or do y'all want to just push through and get done for today? And then we can open up some more time to answer any other questions. Okay, let's push through and let's finish up. This one is very, very simple. It's gonna take us not that much time. There's not much to it, honestly. So let's go ahead and get it started. So you guys are the professionals now. Let's get it going. Oop, let me log back in. Train Pro Web. I'll put it in the chat. So I'll go ahead and read the interview notes and we'll go ahead and get started. Carl is age 41 and was widowed in July 2023. He has a daughter, Lily, age 9, who lived with him the entire year. Carl provided the entire cost of maintaining the household and over half of the support for Lily. In order to work, he pays childcare expenses to Southside Daycare. Carl purchased health insurance for himself and his daughter through the marketplace. He received a Form 1095-A. Carl and Lily are U.S. citizens and lived in the United States all year in 2025. So let's go ahead and start the return for Carl. We'll talk about his filing status fairly soon. So let's go ahead and start it. Well, I guess we'll talk about the filing status now because that's the first thing it asks. So his filing status will be qualified surviving spouse because his spouse had passed away within 2024 or 2023 of the prior year from the interview notes. And really, this filing status is for individuals whose spouse has passed away with a qualified dependent. It also allows for them a little bit more time to submit certain documentation for the deceased spouse, and it gives them a little bit more leeway for these things. And so for this one, we'll do qualified surviving spouse, and then we put the year that the spouse passed away, which is the 2 years after the current year. So in the year that the spouse passed away, they'll do married filing jointly, and the 2 years after that, they'll do married surviving spouse with a qualified dependent and not remarried in those years. And you guys go ahead and fill this out. So you guys know how to do this. You've done it before. I'll give you about a minute to go ahead and fill that in. Give you 2 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes. I'm gonna grab some water. I'll be right back. All right, so we put in his information. We got his social in, put his date of birth, 0412. He's a janitor. He did mark that he wanted to receive presidential election campaign. Oh, one thing to note, this is for whoever's the final candidates. So $1.50 goes to Republican, $1.50 goes to Democrat at the for whoever's the two final candidates. And it doesn't affect the tax return. It's a separate allocation. He stays at 200 Skyway, and we put in a random number, state of zip code, state of Texas zip code, and we hit continue. Then we added for his dependent, Miss Lily. We found her information down here, Lily Graves, 07/24/2016, 07 July 24th, 2016. Her social is 125 001234. And she is a U.S. citizen. We found that to be true here. U.S. citizen, full-time student. She lived with them all last year. And this time, none of the boxes are to be checked. Things we've done before, very simple. We'll double check. It looks like we're gonna have a W-2. We have some we have some savings account stuff, but let's go ahead and do it. So let's go ahead and input the W-2. We've done those before. in the income section, here at the top, or the form finder, W-2, let's add one. And I'll give you a minute or so to add in your W-2. We have a line 12 for code D1500 on the retirement plan as well. And you can see that box 1, 3, and 5 differ, so make sure to change boxes 3 and 5 as well. I'll give you about 2 minutes or so. Thumbs up when we got our W-2 in. Awesome. You guys are professionals now, absolute professionals. Now we got our interest form. Let's go ahead and get that in. We've seen how to do that before. So I continue. We have a Schedule B 1099 INT. Begin. Or we have the form finder and add one. And this one looks a little bit different, but it's the same thing. This back. New bank and trust. 8020 Yonkers. Oh, we have our pairs 10, 22700. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. 8020 Yonkers Boulevard. We'll add in our interest. We only had 2 lines. Let's just double check. Interest income, early withdrawal penalty. Interest income, early withdrawal penalty. And we hit continue. I'll give another minute or so to finish that one up too. And we're going to skip this form and we're going to do this one next. But I'll give you a couple more minutes to, I'll give you until about 3:19 to finish this one. All right, thumbs up when you're ready. Perfect. All things we've done before, nothing new. So here comes the new stuff. So we have Southside Daycare. We need to put in the daycare expense form. So where do we do that? It didn't give us a form number, so we gotta actually find this one. So we know we're done with the income section. We're going to go to the deductions section. We're done with income. We're going to go to deductions. And right here in the credit section, it says credit and dependent care credit. We're going to click on credits. And in the credits menu, we have child and dependent care credit. It's also called Form 2441, but it doesn't say it. So we're going to go with Child Independent Care Credit. And I'm going to delete this one and I'll do it with you guys. So we'll do Child Independent Care Credit and begin. And let's put in the EIN. EIN's here at the bottom, 35900. 35900. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it was Southside Daycare. And we had our address at 303 Twigs Trail. 303 Twigs Trail. 75235, Dallas, Texas. I'm sorry, Tia, what amounts for the interest or this form is called a 2441, but how we find this form is we have to go to deductions in the credits menu, and then we'll click on child care credit. And I can show it right after I get finished with this one, okay? This one has multiple pages, so I kind of have to stay here for a second. Um, so once we put in the information, we'll go to the next page. And so it says, okay, who was the recipient that went to Southside Daycare? We'll click on Lily. If they have multiple children, we can say, okay, who all went there, and then we can divide the amounts or put the amounts that pertain to them. So for Lily, we have 2,200. So 2,200. And I'm going to show this in full one more time right after I finish. 2,200. And continue. It has more pages, I believe. Hold on, let's see. You can just continue through until you get back to this. Awesome. I'm glad you found it. Um, until you get back to this last page. And I'll show it one more time for the top. Somebody else may have wondered. We went to deductions, credits. We went to Child Independent Care Credit or Form 2441. We hit begin. Then we added in our EIN. We did our provider's name and their address. Provider name, Southside Daycare. That's separated. Let me make it do that. And then we had address 303 Twigs Trail. 303 Twigs Trail. And we just put our Dallas zip code 75235. And then we hit continue. Once we're here on the second page for the dependents, we click the checkbox for Lily. And then we added the 2,200. 2,200. 2,200. We hit continue until we get back to the landing page. And now it asks, oh, so when you hit continue, it'll ask like additional questions. We can say no. No. Did you pay any expense? No. So we'll just answer all of those no. Continue. And boom. We are done. Wait, hold on. We got one more form to put in and we're done. Everybody, thumbs up if you were able to fill in the child independent care credit. Awesome. Okay, and the last form we have to do is this form. Like I said, this is our number one reject because taxpayers won't bring the form and we won't know until after their social has been flagged. So every time we talk to a taxpayer, we just want to confirm to make sure that if they had health insurance through the marketplace or not. So we just ask them. And the system in the live software won't allow you to get through this page without answering this question, yes or no. And so it's just a quick remind, it's a good reminder just to ask the taxpayer, hey, did you have Marketplace, Obamacare, or healthcare.gov insurance? And if the question is yes, then we need this form. So this person, this gracious taxpayer, has brought us their form and they have their 1090 Form A available for us. So we say yes, they have it. And next, we need to confirm that all of the individuals that are on the tax return are listed on the 1095A form. Here we have all of the individuals listed on the form on the tax return. We'll hit continue. And for you guys, you'll always, it'll be some, so there's certain circumstances that will cause these answers to be different. For you guys, it'll always be none of the above. And then the second one for required payment will be no. Now, this last question is the most important because it asks a question about the monthly amounts. So when we're looking at the 1095A form, if these are three different separate plans, it doesn't have anything in this column because it's an error, but these are three different separate plans here. If so, when we're looking at it, we look at it from top down like this. And so for each separate plan from January through December, if there are no changes in the monthly amounts, we can use the annual totals here on the bottom row. If there are changes in between the months, then we have to input for the entire form from January through December. And I can show you what that looks like. So if there are changes, we'll say no. And this is what it looks like. We have the input for each one. But luckily for us, because there are no changes to the monthly amounts, we can say yes. And for the premium amounts, we'll put the first column, which is here for the 5,352. For the planned premiums, we have 7,224. Seven. And for the monthly advance payment or premium tax credit, we have 4,656. So we just input for the annual totals down below because we had no changes in the monthly amounts. We said, do all forms 1095A include coverage from January through December with no changes in the monthly amount? So yes, there's no changes. We put the annual totals here. We said none of the above. No. Yes to this one. And we hit continue. There are certain circumstances where we will need to fill this out. Typically, your site manager or your quality reviewer will do this portion for you. You don't have to worry about this. Additionally, the system has been coded to apply these for you, so you no longer have to do them. But in the past, there's certain circumstances where we had to fill this out, but for you guys, you don't need to fill anything here. And we hit continue. And we have done it. Give a round of applause to yourselves and your colleagues here today. We finished all of the tax returns. We've worked on all of them. You guys are absolute professionals now. And we've done it. So let's go over the questions right quick. I will allow for some questions and then we can finish up for today. So, what is Carl's most advantageous filing status, class? Can you tell me? Nice. Qualified surviving spouse. Carl's adjusted gross income on his Form 1040 is, so we have an adjusted gross income, Form 1040. Let's go find it. Continue summary. This is the Form 1040. Let's go to adjusted gross income line. Adjusted gross income line, line 11A, 37128. Nice. The answer is nice. Carl is not eligible to claim the additional child tax credit. Let's look at Lily. Child tax credit is checked, and we can confirm that here on page 2 on line 28, child tax ACTC. He received 1,700, and based on our information and belief, yep, it's gonna be false. He can receive the credit. All right. What is the maximum amount of Carl's non-refundable credit for retirement savings contributions? Form 880, line 10. So let's go find it. When we hear form or schedule, we have to go to the supporting documents. So let's go. I'll have to print this one out. And let's scroll down. There's our 2441. This is what it looks like. It's the new one for us. We can see that he's received EIC, CTC here. We're looking for the 8880 form. Oh, here we are. We got our form 8880. Let's find the benefit for this. Line 10. So let's go to line 10 in the 8880. We got 150. What is the answer, class? All right. The total amount of Carl's net premium tax credit on Form 1040 Schedule 3, line 9 is 388. Let's go take a look. 1040 Schedule 3, line 9. So let's go to our schedules. 3, line 9, net premium tax, 696. Is it true or false? Nice. And lastly, Carl's Child Independent Care Credit for Form 2441 is, let's go to the form, 2441. This is our new one that we worked on today. And his credit is line 11. We have credit of 506. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So that is all of the advanced scenario questions that you have to work. There are conceptual questions 1 through 6, or some scenario tests 1 through 6 that you guys will have to work through. I highly, highly recommend that you go to your Pub 4012, you Control Find, Control F, and you look up those credits that they're asking about. If they're asking for something specifically, find out the material for it and look it up. So this one is asking about HSA, what portions of it are taxable, what additional contributions could they make for their HSA. So when you go to the Pub 4012, just type in HSA, go to the HSA, and it tells you how to complete the form. But then we're going to scroll down and it says add $1,000 to age 55 and over at the end of the year. So as our taxpayer over the age is 58, so what additional contributions can they make? And that's what you will have to do for the forms and how you go about taking the test for questions 1 through 6. Once you've finished and answered all these questions, I would write them down. You'll go to the link and learn. Oh, sorry. Certification. It's the second link. And you'll hit sign in or create an account. Once you create an account, here at the link and learn, I'll put it in the chat too, by the way. Let me do that. Go back. You'll go here to take your test. You'll sign in, create an account, and you'll go to this section where it says take certification test. You'll hit the advanced tab. I know some of you guys are newer here, so you'll have to take the intake, the ethics test, the intakes and ethics tests, or the volunteer standards of conduct rather, and the advanced certification. And so when you go to the advanced tab, it'll have them in that order: the volunteer standards of conduct, the intake and quality review test, and then it'll have the advanced test that we've worked on today. Once you finish those, you go back to the home menu, or you can go to the volunteer agreement here at the top. It'll have you fill out some information and you'll download the form, and that's the form that you'll send to me. It's your volunteer agreement form, and I can give you access to sign up for shifts. Does anybody have any questions for me? Anything? There's no time limit on the test, but you should know the answers before you take the test. It's highly recommended that you make sure to have your answers written down before you take the test. Yes, it's exactly as what we did today. You don't need to do the basic. I will be chopping this segment up into, oh, hold on, let me stop the recording. I will be